The snow drifted lightly across the winter. Market of New Valterra, a frontier outpost, on the border of explored space, where 3 moons hovered low in a violet sky. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my breath turning to mist in the frozen air, watching vendors shouted their goods beneath radiant lanterns, powered by fusion cells no larger than my thumb. I was 57 years old, a cargo pilot named Marcus Thorne, who had spent 3 decades hauling freight between colony systems. My ship was in dock for repairs, and I had wandered into the market seeking nothing in particular, simply wasting time. Before the next contract, the next silent journey through the void, that was when I noticed her. She sat in a metal cage barely big enough to hold her slim body, placed between booths offering exotic produce and mining tools. The sign above her cage read, "Hybrid pet, rare Vulpish strain, fully trained." She could not have been more than 18 or 19 years old. Her hair fell in waves of copper and gold, framing a face so gentle it seemed sculpted from porcelain. But her ears were what marked her as something not entirely human. Tall, pointed, coated in soft fur the same color as her hair. Behind her, a splendid tail curled close around her legs, thick and luxurious despite the clear neglect she had endured. She wore a ragged blue dress that had once been elegant, and her eyes, those striking blue eyes, looked out at the passing crowd with a blend of fear and defiance. There was thought in those eyes, an alertness that unsettled me. The trader, a barrel-necked man named Dargo, was arguing with a would-be customer. "She's moody, yes, but that spirit can be broken. She's young, strong, and will give years of obedience." My stomach nodded. I knew about the hybrid operations. Everyone did, though most pretended not to. Centuries earlier, when humanity spread among the stars, geneticists began mixing human DNA with animal traits. The official excuse was adaptation to harsh worlds. The real motive was always profit. Most hybrids were built to be laborers, soldiers, or companions. The fox hybrids, the Vulpish strain, were engineered to be beautiful and compliant, living ornaments for the wealthy. But staring at this young woman, I saw nothing compliant in her gaze. "How much?" I heard myself say. Dargo turned, evaluating me with a practiced glare. "For you, Captain? 6,000 credits." It was extortion. It was also the sum of every credit I had saved over my last 3 runs. 1,000, I countered. We bargained for 10 long minutes in the drifting snow. At last, we agreed on 4,500 credits. I sent the funds from my wrist console, feeling sick with myself even as I did it. Dargo unlocked the cage with an electronic key. "She's called Kiera. She doesn't speak much, but she understands commands. Keep her warm and fed, and she'll serve you well." Kiera stepped out slowly, moving with a grace far too elegant for the cramped space she had lived in. She was tiny, barely up to my shoulder. Her tail trailed through the snow behind her. "Come," I said, not as an order, but as an offer. "Let's find someplace warm." She followed me across the market, keeping 3 steps back. I felt the stares of others on us, judging, calculating. Some saw a man with a new pet. Others saw something they didn't want to think about. My ship, the Wandering Star, rested in dock 17 at the edge of the port. It wasn't much to see. A mid-sized cargo hauler that had endured better decades, but it had been my home longer than most marriages survive. Inside, I guided Kiera to the small galley and motioned toward a chair. "Sit, please." She stayed standing, watching me with those careful eyes. I sighed and turned to the food synthesizer. You must be hungry.
I
Can make soup or stew or why did you buy me? Her voice was soft but clear with a
musical tone that startled me.
I faced her. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure.
I saw you.
In that cage, and I couldn't leave you there. So, I am a charity case then. Another human easing his conscience. There was bitterness in her voice, and I could not fault her for it. No, I said, quietly. You are a person who deserves better than being sold like machinery.
I
Won't pretend I'm noble. I just couldn't walk away. She watched me for a long moment, then slowly sat down in the
chair.
Then what happens now?
Now you
Eat something warm and we decide what comes next. During the next days, while my ship underwent repairs, an unusual pattern formed. Kiera stayed in the spare cabin, coming out only at mealtimes at first. I gave her space, asked no questions, and made no demands.
bit by
Bit, she began appearing in the common rooms. I learned she had been engineered in a laboratory on Epsilon Prime, one of hundreds created in a single batch.
she
Had been sold at age 12 to a merchant household who treated her as a spectacle. When they tired of her, she was resold, then sold again. Every owner looked at her as something less than human, a beautiful ornament to display. I can read, she told me one night as we ate dinner, and write and calculate faster than most humans. But none of that mattered. All they cared about were the ears and the tail. That says more about them than it does about you, I answered. She laughed, a sound without warmth.
easy.
For you to say, Marcus, you are fully human. You will always belong in ways I never can. I had no reply because she
Was right.
3 weeks later, the repairs were finished. I had a job to transport medical supplies to Frosthaven, a week-long trip through stable space.
You
Can stay aboard if you want, I told.
Kiera.
I'm not great with company, but the ship has space. Or I can find passage for you somewhere else. You choose.
She
Looked genuinely surprised. You let me choose. You are never my property.
Kiera.
You're free to make your own decisions. She stayed silent so long I thought she wouldn't reply. Then she said, I will stay. If your offer is honest. It is. And so, Kiera became my companion on the Wandering Star.
At
First, she kept to herself, reading from the ship's library or gazing out the viewports at the stars. But slowly she began helping with small duties, sorting cargo manifests, watching system monitors, even assisting with basic repairs. She was brilliant. Her mind absorbed information with startling speed, and she had a natural talent for the technical work of running a ship. In 2 months, she was better at navigation than I had ever been. You could get certified as a pilot, I told her one
day.
You're skilled enough. She gave me that look again, the one that reminded me how naive I sounded. What licensing bureau would certify a hybrid?
We are
Property, Marcus, not citizens. That's wrong.
yes.
It is also the law. Her words stayed with me for days. I was 60 years old, or close enough that it didn't matter. I had lived through wars and collapses, through expansion and ruin.
I
Had watched colonies rise and fail, yet I had never questioned the systems that allowed people like Kiera to be bought and traded. 6 months after I had found her in that snowy market, I woke in the night and saw her standing at the viewport in the common room. Her tail was wrapped around her waist and she held herself tight, as though against a cold only she could feel. Can I sleep?
I
Ask softly.